Hi, it's David McArthur for Wine Science 1. I'm here in Oliver, British Columbia. That's in the south part of the Okanagan Valley for wine grape growing. And I'm at a vineyard that has both Syrah and Riesling.
When one enters a vineyard and tastes the wine from those grapes, they should think of the terroir, a major component of wine growing. Terroir is all about the direct and interacting effects of viticulture and geographical factors that together result in the unique characteristics of a wine from grapes grown at a given site. As an example, consider the vineyard of the Jackson Triggs Estate Winery in Oliver in the BC VQA Okanagan Valley geographical indication. In terms of viticulture factors, these include such things as the trellising system. In this case, it's a bilateral cordon. And one of the important components of this are the shoots are oriented vertically to improve photosynthetic efficiency. The grapevines themselves are oriented northeast to southwest, and this helps decrease shading, especially in the spring and fall when the sun is predominantly from the south. Now, in terms of geographical factors, in terms of climate, it is a cool, semi-arid climate from a rain shadow effect. The example vineyard has about 2,400 hours of sunshine and 1,500 growing degree days. Now, this is a relatively warm and bright area for this latitude in Canada, and in comparison, for example, to the coastal area of British Columbia. It does allow for varieties such as Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah to be ripened fully. Now, one thing about this climate is it has only 174 frost-free days. So frost can be an issue, and wind machines are commonly used for frost protection. In terms of soil type, this area has a sandy loam with a low water and nutrient holding capacity. Thus, irrigation and fertigation with nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are essential. And in terms of exposure, in terms of light and wind, this area is actually fairly flat. So there's no slope effects in this vineyard per se. This valley, though, is somewhat narrow, and the winds do come up during the day, and they produce a drying breeze that occurs that helps to lower the relative humidity around the canopy and to decrease disease pressure. In terms of topography, this vineyard is at 440 meters above sea level. Now, this vineyard is in a flat, narrow delta with some close surrounding mountains to the east and west sides. And in this vineyard, the variety Syrah is being grown.
This is a Syrah grape over here, grapevine. And I just want to walk you through some of the basic components of this system here. It's called a bilateral cordon, and I'll explain it in just a minute. So what we have, this is the basic trunk, Vitis vinifera, Syrah is the variety. Down here, there's a bit of a bulge there. That's where the graft union was between the Vitis vinifera Syrah and a North American rootstock that's used for resistance to phylloxera. Now, about 99% of all wine grapes grown in the world have some kind of a North American rootstock grafted onto the noble varieties so that they can actually survive attack by the phylloxera. It's a root louse. It attacks the roots and it can kill the plant relatively quickly. So it is an important component to the system. Now, some of the rootstocks also work better in sort of a sandier soil or a more clayish soil. So sometimes some secondary considerations there also. Okay, so in this system here, rootstock, trunk. Now this is a bilateral cordon, and cordon refers to a permanent branch that's trained horizontally along the wires, and it's left there indefinitely, permanently. So what we have here is one of the cordon branches. And you see this is actually quite thick and quite rough in terms of bark. And so this is actually maybe 2 years older than this shoot over here, this horizontal shoot. And we have another one over here. That's why it's a bilateral cordon. There's one permanent shoot is called the cordon, and this is also a cordon. So there's two bilateral cordon shoot training system. Now, with the bilateral cordon shoot training system, we have what's called spur renewal. So we leave this horizontal branch, this permanently. We have vertical shoots that grow up. And for example, what happened last year is after the canes or the shoots they've lost their leaves and they had actually were overwintering, someone would come along and they would prune the cane from that previous year down to about a 2 bud stub. So it's called a spur. It's usually about anywhere from 4 to about 6 centimeters in height, and there's almost always two buds, two compound buds, one here, for example, and one here, for example. Now you can see over here, so after the mother cane is set up for the first year, and then you have the vertical canes, then every year after that, those canes are cut down to about 2 buds per each of those canes, and so then you have something that will produce the new growth in the following year that will fill up the canopy and allow photosynthesis and flower, then berry production too. Now each of the compound buds has a growing point on the shoot. It has primordial leaves, it has flower primordia, inflorescence primordia also, and they're all in that compound bud, but they have to overwinter, and then in the spring the dormancy is overcome, and when it's warm enough, so the environmental constraints are reduced or eliminated, then those shoots reactivate and they grow out. This is one shoot here, and it's growing up nicely. We have a leaf node down at the base, we have another leaf node here, another leaf node over here, and then we have a leaf node up here. You can see the leaves at the top are just beginning to enlarge. The ones down below are already quite a lot larger. They will get bigger later on. They still have some cell division and some enlargement to do for the cells. Now in the leaf axillary position, or in between the shoot and the leaf petiole, there's what's called an axillary or lateral bud. Now that will mature into the compound bud for the following year. It stays dormant through the summer under most circumstances, and then it will actually have to go through overwintering, and then it'll start growth again next year. And that's your flower primordia we're usually developing these buds, and that will start, the induction for flower initiation is about the first week or so of August. Okay, so there we have the growing point of the shoot. You may have some tendrils, like you can see over here, some tendrils that help the shoots grab onto the wires or whatever they can to as they grow up tall. And then we have the leaves, we have the flowers potentially, but they still have 2, maybe 3 more weeks to go before the flowers will be mature and ready. They'll pop open, and then it'll be the start of fertilization of the ovules and the start of the production of the actual seeds, and then therefore the berries too. Now, so there's 2 wires down here, there's 2 wires up here, and there's 2 wires up here, and finally there's 2 wires up here about 2 meters or even a little bit more off the ground. And again, the whole idea is to have that vertical shoot placement, have them protected from flopping around too much. These tendrils will actually grab on. Here's some tendrils from last year. Now, so these flowers and then flower primordia will usually mature in about the first week or so of June, and then not too long after that, you'll get the fertilization of the ovules and the berries will start, and then you have the whole system. You have the shoot canopy up here. Again, some of the shoots will be moved around in space. They don't hit each other, or they don't compete for light or for the air movement, and then the fruit will all be in this zone down here about roughly. And eventually what they will do is what's called basal leaf removal down in this one area where the berries are, and I'll explain that later on.